I'm Brenda Renee, and I have been working with Law of Attraction. Seth Speaks, Jane Roberts. And I took one look at this cover and I said, no, I can't do this. But I opened the book up, flipped through it. I always get a feel for a book before I buy it. I like the author's style, the way they communicate words. I'm a writer myself. And no, not quite ready for it. A year went by, went back to the bookstore, picked it up. Seth was a channeled entity. Jane Roberts, she was a writer, and she channeled him back in the 70s. It's an old book. And I got it used. And at this little bookstore where they had a phenomenal New Age section. And I took this book home, and Seth is tricky reading. He's really, really deep. And at the time, I was just floored. I understood what he was talking about on a visceral level, but not necessarily on a practical level. But I was just voraciously reading. After I read that book, I went on and got The Nature of Personal Reality. Seth Speaks talks about global and the overall situation. The Nature of Personal Reality breaks it down more about your life. Okay? Well, I thought I had some pretty big keys to the universe at this point. I was really excited about it. Then Abraham Hicks presented themselves to me. And Jerry Hicks, he's now passed away, Esther's husband, he drug her into channeling Abraham by studying Seth. And she was really scared at first. And they read the Seth stuff, and Jerry was like me, I want more. I need more information how to apply this. And so Seth, Abraham Hicks, Asking It Is Given is one of the best ones. I recommend it to all my clients. And then on the very tail end was Neville Goddard, the power of, this one's the power of awareness, but he's got several. This man has been with me through some of the darkest nights of the soul. He came to New York from Barbados to be an actor. He met a Jewish mystic that taught him secrets of reality, of metaphysics, of spirituality. And he takes the Holy Scripture, the Holy Bible, and he breaks down passages, but not from a Christian perspective. He explains to you what the metaphysical meaning behind all of this information was. So that's where I started. Tonight, I'm here to remind you guys how powerful you are and how magical life is meant to be. Because if you're like I was and you feel stuck and you want change, I want to give you some practical tools on how to get over the hump. Okay? And as I said earlier, I hope some of you brought me some juicy questions and examples that we can break down and figure out. Now, within a quantum physics universe, there is a set of laws. We think of things as very just sporadic and haphazard and no rhyme, no reason. But there is a very set order of laws, and they are beneficial to all who learn to use them. They are non-discriminatory. They don't care who you are, what color, what religion, what race. None of that matters. It's equal for every human being. Everything in this universe is energy. It's made up of electrons that just float around, and they make up things like stars and planets and human beings, dogs, cats, plants. Energy is living. It's ever changing. It never stops changing. and it's also interconnected. There's no way you can separate something from something from something. Even when it appears to be physically separated, it's still interconnected, okay? Because everything is made of energy, it carries a specific frequency, all right? Now, the easiest way to talk about frequencies is thinking about a TV or radio channel. They have a frequency. You look at a dial or remote and you scroll through the different channels to find a frequency. I tell people, if you're wanting to hear hard rock, you're not going to go to 88 AM to hear it. You're probably going to get classical or talk radio, okay? So you have to be able to tune in to the frequency. Now, these little electrons, they coalesce around other little electrons, like little friends, and they gather together, and that's what brings about the attraction part of this. Another example would be to say, I'm not a football person. Everybody in here probably wants to slap me for that because I've learned since I got to Colorado, football's the thing, but I'm just not. But in a football metaphor, you've got two teams out on the field. One's wearing orange, one's wearing, I don't know, what's another color of a football team?
Purple.
Purple. For Louisiana? Well, that would be LSU.
Minnesota.
Okay, LSU's purple too. So you're not going to mix up the orange jerseys with the purple jerseys and call that a team. They don't match. And that's a very basic way of looking at how things match each other. Now, this is something that came up as I was writing these notes. To be in this reality, in this time-space reality, you have to have enough momentum in the frequency to manifest. Now, I want to say that much easier. You guys have all heard of ghosts, and maybe fairies, and maybe angels, okay? They don't necessarily match the frequency of our reality. But every now and then, a lucky soul will get to see one. And that's because they have propelled the energy to a place that pops into this reality. It doesn't last long. You got to be quick on your feet to see them. And then they blink out. And this is why they're not permanent here, because they're not a match to this reality. And that's why they come and go. Now, what we're looking at in law of attraction as human beings is usually, how do I take these principles and make them work for me? The universe is always operating under law of attraction. Most people do not know it. Things just happen, it goes right by them, and they're not aware of it. But as you start to learn to look for things, you realize, yeah, this is really working. When you go to the supermarket and you want to get a parking spot right at the door, magically one appears. Or you're sitting down and you're thinking about something and the person suddenly calls you. These are another common when people call me in a complete panic about is looking at the clock and seeing repeating numbers. 1111, 333, 444. Oh my gosh, what's happening to me, Brenda? It's law of attraction. And the universe loves it when we actually notice it. Because then they say, okay, now we can do this. Look what else we can do. So it's pretty cool when people start paying attention to these frequencies and how they're manifesting repeatedly in their life. Now, with law of attraction, the very beginning thing that you have to be aware of is you have to be willing 100% to come on in. We're happy to have you. Was there anybody else out there?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Okay, we're good. All right. So, can
Hi.
you come out just a little bit? I'm right here. I want to be right in place. There you go. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Hi, I'm Brenda.
Hi.
Glad to have you.
Yes, I'm lucky to be here.
Was it pretty busy outside?
Driving from Denver, yes.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Yes, it's tough.
Okay, so when you're working with law of attraction, you have to make a commitment to yourself that you are willing to take responsibility for your entire reality. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the pretty. And if you're not willing to own what you've created, then how can you consciously create other things? So it's a decision, and that's a tough one for a lot of people. It's always been working, even when you didn't know it. Most people unknowingly, they don't know the law, first of all, and even if they do, they just kind of haphazardly offer a frequency. And then they get whatever, kind of a mixed bag of events and people in their lives. So once you start deliberately, consciously staying on top of your energy field, then you have much more room to maneuver, and you draw things you want instead of all the crap you don't want. Okay? Teachers like The Secret. I'm sure everybody in here's probably seen that movie. I've never watched it, but I know it follows Abraham Hicks. When we see these things, we think, oh, this is so easy, and we rush out and we're going to create $1 million and a cruise ship and, you know, everything else we can get our hands on, and then nothing happens. So it does take work. It takes focus, consistent focus, especially when you're moving through old patterns. And we've all got old patterns we have to move through. Why did you guys come here tonight? Would anybody raise their hand, like to throw something out there? Was there a specific incident? Was there something you couldn't figure out? Is there something you've been trying to manifest? Anybody? You just came to hear some words?
Well, also, I mean, it's not going to be anything you're looking for.
Of course it
I have
is.
been wanting to come to one of Debbie's meetups for a long time, and law of attraction just kind of, okay, you know, I manifest pretty well. So.
Okay. So,
but always, you can always learn more. Right?
Janice, would you like to share what you think the success of your manifestations has been?
I would say it's been a lot of trial and error for me, Brenda. You know, I mean, just like you're right. It takes that focus. I mean, when I focus, what I want comes, and I mean, it can come like that. When I don't hold that, and I mean hold it all the time. Thoughts are sneaky little bastards, you know. and that's the only way I'm going to say it. You know, in those old patterns, they don't want to give up the fight. They really don't. And so to me, it's just sort of this constant reminder of what am I wanting, and if it's not coming, what am I doing to
block it?
Well, yeah, just build the freaking brick wall in front of it, you know, and because it's always something I'm doing, you know. And so I can't say I have it all figured out, but I do know when I focus the most, when I take time to meditate, when I take time to visualize, when I spend time with affirmations, when I understand that all the information that comes to us all day long, right? Other people, your family, your coworker, whatever. It's just noise. You know, my thoughts. I just always have to remember I get to create my own reality. And that it's up to me to hold that. And that can just be hard. And so maybe you've got a shortcut to that. And if you do, please tell me.
I will offer what I have. We'll see if it's a shortcut. Well, and thank you for that, because I understand what you're talking about. I've been there many times. Law of attraction, it's a goodie. It is. It's a goodie in a little goodie basket. And, you know, once you understand it, it makes life very magical. Now, I did put a little thing in here in these notes that I want to bring up. Crisis. You know, Janice was talking about, you know, we get stuck in these patterns. And oftentimes, crisis hits. And a lot of people, when it happens, it could be a divorce, it could be an illness, it could be a new career change. There's many ways, you know, things we don't even necessarily, a wedding could even be a crisis. But often this stirs up a lot of stuff we've been sitting on that we haven't wanted to deal with. And a lot of people, they just hunker down and wait for it to pass. But then there's those who say, you know what, I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to move into a new life. And, you know, that's a productive use of that energy. So the blessing, one of the blessings of crisis is it takes you out of your comfort zone. And when you're out of your comfort zone, you're more willing to grow and change. Many of the great seers and spiritual leaders began their life's work after they had gone through a severe life crisis. Now, if you have a crisis all the time and you're a little dramatic, that's a different kind of crisis than what I'm talking about. That's a pattern, an ingrained pattern that needs to be shifted. Okay, now we're going to get out in it here, into the nitty-gritty. Your beliefs equal your reality. Now, the woman I told you guys about early on that came to me and she was just in tears about law of attraction, you know, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, Brenda. Well, after she and I, you know, sat down and had a session together and she talked a little bit, she started really revealing some long lifetime resistance she had. And I'm like, you know, nothing can forge through that concrete wall. You know, we got to shift the resistance to get you on your way, on your path. Seth taught this, I think, the most succinctly. Manifestation occurs through thoughts plus emotions. You can think, I'd love to be a millionaire. I'd love to be a millionaire. But if there's no emotional impetus behind that thought, it doesn't propel it into manifestation. So the things you're really passionate about, the things you're really angry about, you have almost like lit a match to start a fire to make those things manifest. Okay? The universe answers every single request. So you say to me, okay, Brenda, I hear you, but I've been wanting that $1 million for a long time, we'll say. Well, here's where it gets a little tricky and exciting. Every dream you've had does exist. It exists in a parallel reality. There are multiple versions. You know, we all, even with us all sitting in this room, you think we all agree on what's happening here. But each one of us has a different perception and a different version of reality. And when you have a dream, it's almost like a little savings account. The universe puts all the stuff you want in, and they kind of wait for you to finally become a match to what's already happening for you. It's not a matter of, I gotta change, this linear approach, like a ladder getting there. If you want health, bam, it exists. So your job is to match the frequency of that health or that money or that lover, whatever it is. And we'll talk about it.
Brenda, I have a question. Like for instance, for health, because that's something I've been personally working on. What would be like a tangible way to get your frequency to match? Would it be through meditation? Would it be through changing your diet? Just what would be some like physical examples that people can do that?
Okay.
Yeah.
hang on to that.
Okay,
Because I
gotcha.
want to insert it right at the right moment.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's a
Okay.
great question.
Okay,
And if I start rambling on, remind me, okay?
Yeah, okay,
I don't think
all
I'll
right,
need
all
one
right.
of it, but I'm gonna catch you.
yeah,
Okay, here's another thing that I talk to people about. I want you to start seeing your life like you're a movie director. Now, I was an actress once upon a time, so this kind of rolls right out of me. But you guys all have seen movie directors. Everybody in here has seen a movie. So what I want you to do is imagine you're the director of a movie or a play. Every single person, if I walked out there right now and talked to this librarian, every one of these people are characters, actors in my play, in my movie. The words you speak back to me are scripts that I've given you. The actions, the events that happen, I've created. The scenery, the timing, all of it. Okay? You know, Shakespeare was so wise all those years ago. You know, he talked about every man, every woman's an actor on a stage. I don't know the exact quote. But he knew about it. All the brilliant people down through the ages knew these secrets, but they communicated them in different ways. And the words are just signposts. Now let's get into some wording as we talk about affirmations and things. Yes and no mean the same thing to the universe. The universe is not paying attention to your words. Your words are more for you, okay? The universe is only paying attention to your frequency. And no, I don't want that. And yes, I would love to have that. Let me send it to them. They're matching the frequency of that. What you feel, what you think, and what you speak creates a frequency. But a lot of times we think, oh, the words is what's important. The words aren't important. It's the vibration, the emotion behind the words that you're communicating. Okay? Just like I said, oh, I would love to have $1 million. I would love to have $1 million. It's a totally different frequency. Okay? All right, now, powerful attracting words. I'm going to go ahead and give these to you just so you can see where you're at when you're going through your day. A long time ago, I completely stopped any kind of personal criticism. You'll get around somebody and they'll say, oh, I'm so stupid, or I'm so ugly, or I'm so fat, or I'm da-da-da-da-da-da. And they are magnifying the frequency of that, drawing it to them. And then they'll go down the street and somebody will say, you sure are stupid. And they get mad at that person when they've already set that frequency up. Powerful attracting words. I am. That's the top of the pyramid. You say I am, you are owning it from a very divine, centered space. I choose, I intend, which is the way I often write a lot of things in my journal. And also, I have. Now I'm going to throw a little switcheroo in there. I hate. That's another powerful, attracting word. I hate, I don't want, I am against. Now, when we say, I want something, that's kind of weak because it implies you don't already have. Now, remember the savings account I told you the universe has for you. When you say, I want something, you're not even acknowledging it's already existent, okay? I pulled out this Bible quote for you guys, and it's, all of these religious or spiritual texts had a wealth of truth and wisdom, but man really kind of jacked it up a little bit, okay? But this is Mark 11:24. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe you receive them, and ye shall have them. What that means is, don't ask for things you don't already have. Acknowledge that you already have them. You know, so many people when they pray, please give me, give me, give me, give me, instead of saying, thank you for what I've already been given. Because it's true, you've already been given it. Every single thing. Now, quantum physics. You guys, I'm not a big high-tech kind of person. If it works for me, I just keep doing it. So I brought my little dry erase board because I want to draw a little picture for you. Now this is my little quantum physics picture. And I'm a visual person, so the pictures work for me. I'm going to draw, because I want to explain to you even more along this quantum physics. Okay, so we're going to say that my little thing that could, I guess, possibly cover as an ocean is the field. I'll swap some words, some labels. The universe, God, all that is. Whatever you want to define it as, it's everything that ever existed and ever will be. Okay? Within the field, I put you some little dots called particles. Now, in these particles, we can have completely different worlds. Now, we live on the planet called Earth. Okay? Did you have a question, Debbie? You good?
No, I'm good. I'm just looking at the worlds.
But let's say this, there are many Earth. And let's say every one of these are many Earths. What you experience is what you match vibrationally. Okay? We got that pretty locked in? Now when I'm life coaching somebody, I tell them these little particles are versions of them. All right? So let's say this one here is Debbie. This is the Debbie she's always been. This is who she's been. Now Debbie's wanting to move into, say, perfect health and well-being. Let's say that is the marker for that. So what she's looking to do is to shift into this new identity. And as I've said to you, this already exists. There could be one over here where she's really, really, really sick. They all exist. You get to tune into what you want. Okay, now don't get ahead. We're going to talk about how to get to those different identities. But I wanted to give you some sort of visual to help you lock this in. There's multiple versions of worlds. There's multiple versions of you. If you're not living your dream, it's because you're not the version that's living it yet. Also, I want to throw this in. Might feel like it's a little off subject, but it'll help you understand a little bit better. Our brains are set up in like little highways. There's a lot of wiring going on in there. And these wirings are called neural nets. And each little group of those guys has their own little belief. So let's say you had always had abusive relationships. Well, that little neural net is vibrating that negative relationship. Your mind will trick you into seeking out more abusive relationships. Because each time you confirm that belief, your brain rewards you with a chemical injection of hormones. And it's addictive.
Is it serotonin?
It
Or-
could be
or
serotonin,
dopamine.
it could be dopamine, it could be adrenaline, okay?
Mm.
So you see the people we talk about having the drama all the time? They get that rush every time they recreate that scenario, and that's what makes it difficult to step out of this loop, okay? So your brain, your body is biologically connected to what you're creating. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, now we're going to talk about determining where we're at. What's our vibration right now? And I made you guys some copies. Please pass these around. You give me one. I always
Sure.
give out everything and don't have one for myself. Okay. Now, I borrowed this emotional guidance scale from Asking It As Givens, page 114. But I have found it invaluable with my clients when I'm trying to explain to them vibration.
Thanks.
I've got the page memorized. I just hand them the book, say, here, take this book, go to 114, you got it covered. Okay, so, all right, so now look at this scale. Now the little black print at the top, the heavy print, I came up with that information because I was able to break this down and get deeper into it. Now, you see 1 through 22. Each one of these is a different shade of an emotion, okay? 1 is the very top, 22 is the very bottom. When you're down at 22 in, say, depression and grief, you do not have any match to love, to well-being, to joy. You can see the distance between joy at number 1, grief at number 22. 1 through 6, actually I got it 1 through 4. Okay, 1 through 4 is the zone where everything's popping off the walls. You got dreams coming, clicking in. When you get to 5 and 6, 6 is really the turning point. You get there, things are turning around for you, and they're about to start manifesting. And when I'm working with someone, my goal is to get them, no matter where they're at, to get them to hope. If I can get you to hope, you're going to see what you want. Now, numbers 7 through 13 is the neutral zone. No bad, no good, just neutral. I will caution you about getting comfortable here. When you're in this zone, you can easily tip down. I mean, think about it. Boredom, yeah, that can flip around on you real quick. And then we have 14 to 22. When you're down there and you're drawing stuff you really don't want to see. So I'll get a client in and they are in rage. And they're disgusted about something. And I can't sit there and give them enough flowery words to make them think it's all going to be okay. I have to work with them on an incremental level. So what you can do with this is you can take a topic. Debbie, you may choose health. Someone may choose money. Someone may choose relationship. Figure out where you're at on this scale about that topic. I highly encourage everyone I cross paths with to get a journal and use it, write in it daily. So you get your journal. Let's say we're at frustration, number 10 on relationships. Oh, I'm so frustrated. I'm ready to have the love of my life. It seems like forever that I've been dealing with this. That's your first line. You're going to keep talking to yourself as you talk your way up this scale. 10 is what? Frustration. So something easily accomplishable would be to move up to maybe boredom. Well, I'm not quite frustrated anymore, but I'm sure bored with this. I need a new story. I need something new happening. And you just work your way up that scale. You cannot, I'm going to warn you with this, you can't be down here at 18 and move to 6, usually, in one day. It takes effort. But any improvement up is improvement that you can stick to and then come back. Here's an interesting thing. Wherever you leave a subject, say on this scale, wherever you leave it, when you come back to it, it's going to be there. So let's say you've had awful relationships with coworkers, 20 years. They've driven you nuts. And then you get out of the work and you go do your own little thing. 5 years later, something else happens. That vibration gets reactivated where it was left at. Okay? Any questions about that scale? Does it make pretty clear sense to you? Okay. Another way to determine your vibration is to study your emotions. How do you dominantly feel? Study your bodily sensations, because our body will let us know a lot of times when we don't want to do something or when we feel bad about something. It'll get that feeling in our stomach or whatever, you know? Easy creations show where you have zero resistance. You want to know what resistance looks like? 14 to 22's resistance. Okay? Resistance blocks your flow. A fabulous analogy Abraham uses often is life is like a river, and rivers flow in one way, and you're in like a little canoe, and if you're in the flow where you don't have resistance, your little canoe just trucks on down the river. But most of us are hanging on to the branches, or we're trying to paddle up the river. So when you're in the flow, things happen quick and they happen easy. This is my favorite Abraham quote in the whole world. 17 seconds of pure, focused thought is equivalent to 2,000 action hours. Be careful what you think, what you focus on.
Can you repeat that again?
17 seconds of pure, focused thought is equivalent to 2,000 action hours towards a goal. So what this means is, now you can sit here and do a little math, multiply that 17 a few times, and you got some good stuff going on. But most of us believe that we have to work hard, we have to take the action, we have to do this, we have to do that, and finally, if we're lucky, we'll reap the results. Action in this world is originally meant to be the icing on the cake, not the whole cake. Everything that manifests began as a thought. So when you get your thinking right, the results flow in, they're easy to come by. It's a different reality, trust me, than beating your head against the wall. Now I'm going to give you a warning, caution label. Do not deny your negative lower register emotions and thinking. Because when you deny something, you repress it and it bubbles up like a volcano eventually. And if it never bubbles up, it actually can become disease in the body. Because all energy has to manifest somehow. And I've had clients that are scared of their anger. Scared they're going to go postal or something. Psychotic, you know? Seth taught me this. He says every emotion is fluid. They're not dangerous unless you repress them. If you feel anger or rage and you let yourself shift past it without judging, oh my God, I feel angry, what's wrong with me? If If you just let it smooth out, it'll automatically manifest into something else. But when you got these people that's, been pushing it down, rage is always long-term repressed emotion that has not been allowed to creatively shift to something else. Okay? Energy is ever changing, as we said early on. There's nothing in reality that is stuck. And you're going to say, I beg to differ, because I've felt stuck in a lot of places. But energy's constantly changing. And by that very fact, if you keep getting the same thing over and over, you're just recreating it over and over. If you continue on your current course without changing anything, you pretty much know where that road's going at this point. You're going to create X, Y, Z. But if you tweak that and you change it a little bit, you can very well arrive at ABC. But you have to make the changes to get the different results. Psychics. Has everybody in here been to a psychic at least once? Yeah? No? Never have? Look at you. Okay. Well, before I became a psychic, I went to many psychics. And I found that most of the predictions didn't come true. And I said, well, what's this all about? I've probably been to 30 different psychics in my life, at least. And I didn't get any results. Well, then I became a psychic and I started learning about quantum physics, and now I understand. Psychics read the probabilities around you. If you get a hold of a negative psychic, they're going to read the negative probabilities, doom and gloom. You get a hold of a positive one, they're going to read the positive. But ultimately, they're reading energy. Energy hasn't necessarily manifested yet. It hasn't come into physical form yet, okay? And that's where we get screwy with all these predictions. I try now to steer all my clients. Let's not talk about predictions. Let's look at where you're at and why you're creating this and move on from it, right? Now, I will say this. The readers like Debbie, and I'm a new little fish to this pond, the Akashic Records reading. When you're reading from an altered state or an altered consciousness, you bypass your personality and your ego, and you are directly communicating with Source, with guides, with angels, whoever's there available. So these readings tend to be more accurate than just a tarot reading. Does that make sense? All right, but it's all still somebody tuning in to all these different little particle realities. Your point of power is right now. I don't care if you've lived something 25 years. In this moment is where all the power is to manifest something different. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, right now. Because as I said, in the quantum universe beyond this little planet, there is no time. So you can use that as to your leverage. No one else can create your reality, not your kid, not your husband, not your mother, not your coworkers. You're still the director of all of it. If they come up and hit you over the head, we got to take responsibility. Why would I have created that situation? You give everything permission through your vibration. Now people say, I would never have chosen a life like this. Now, I've been working with astrology charts since I was a teenager. And I can tell you emphatically that you do choose what you come in and experience. It's in that chart. I moved out of one family into an adoptive family. The same patterns were in the adoptive family. The charts lined up. It was amazing. So when you're in a soul state, you say, okay, I'm going to come down here and I have these soul lessons to learn. That family over there looks like a good place to start. I know what their patterns, their dynamics are. And then you get here, you forget all of that, and you start living out all this stuff, and it's reflected in your chart. You start living it out, and then hopefully somewhere along the way you run into someone like me that says, okay, now let's get control of this steering wheel and start driving this car deliberately. Now let's talk about Debbie's example that she gave on the well-being. We talked, now Debbie presented, she's been working on health. She wants to move into, let's say, a perfect state of health and balance, equilibrium.
Oh, absolutely.
So, she's lived a lot already, okay? We can't negate what she's lived. It's in her memory. She can't necessarily forget it, okay? So, we put our focus on that identity that is whole, that is healthy, that's living another life, literally parallel to the one she's been living. Now here's where your journal comes in. How do I move into that new identity, Brenda? Well, you take your journal and you write. You are at your most powerful point of attraction and manifesting. A lot of us like to do all this in our head and imagine. It's better when you write. And if you want to add 50 points to that, it's even better if you'll draw in color around what you write, because you're bringing the two hemispheres of the brain together. You're operating on all four cylinders. So what she's going to do is she is going to get into her director role, and she's going to write little snippets, little scenes of what this life looks like, this life she wants to manifest. And they don't have to be long, but they do need to be filled with adjectives, descriptive, and emotion. Excuse me. So, tell me something that you've noticed that being out of balance has kept you from doing or caused you to experience that you want to move out of.
I guess I'd like to gain more energy to exercise on a regular basis and enjoy it, because in the past I've never enjoyed exercising. It's like I have almost like a block to it now. So,
Understood.
yeah.
I always admire those people that live in the gym and they just revel in exercising. My sister's one of those. Okay, so here is a little story that Debbie could write. We're always writing from the present tense or reflective, okay? We're not writing future tense because that implies it hasn't happened. So here we go. And this is you, Debbie. I'm going to talk for you.
Okay, gotcha.
It's 7 a.m. The sun is just breaking over the tops of the houses. I'm feeling really good. I'm excited. I have been consistently working out at the gym for the last 5 months. My body feels so strong, so powerful, and so full of life. I am so thankful to me for doing this.
Love your new accent.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah.
So she would write those, and she would do it consistently. Remember what we said about the 17 seconds? That was at least 100 seconds. I mean, I wasn't watching the time. But as she does this each day, that vibration becomes so familiar to her that it's like putting on clothes. She puts it on, she wears it, she accepts it. And I tell my clients, they say, okay, well then how do you know when you've done it enough? Well, as you're doing these, the reality starts to feel more real than, say, sitting on the couch watching a soap opera. That feels more like me than this chick sitting here. And that's when it's about to pop. Now, if we started every venture this way, they'd go a lot more smoothly. I was talking to an Aries in here before you guys got here. She was wanting to know about her career, and I said, okay, this is what looks like a good fit for you. She said, well, what should I do? Should I do it the Aries way and just jump in, feet first, and think about it later? I said, actually not. Let's get your mind in alignment with where you want to go, then take the action. And if you do it that way, the action, when you take it, you're not indecisive, you're not stressed. It feels like, yeah, I need to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm looking forward to this. It's not, oh, I got to drag myself there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to give you a little special story of me doing this in my own life. I had been single for 7 years, and it was kind of like a buffet experience. I was going down the buffet, checking different foods out to see what was going to make sense for me and what my desires were. And there towards the end of it, when I was fully ready to get involved, I would write these scenarios about the love of my life. And I would give it vivid detail. We're on a date, we're doing this, we're doing that. This is how I feel, this is how he feels, this is what he said to me. And I'm very fortunate to be able to give you a date because it was my favorite holiday of the year. I was sitting at a coffee shop, and it was St. Patrick's Day. And I was writing this. And I got done writing, I was like, yeah, I feel like I already know this guy. He feels so real. It's like I'm already in the relationship. That was 4 o'clock on St. Patrick's Day 2012. By 10 o'clock that night, I went to hear a live band play, and I stood in front of my husband. And I didn't stop there. I continued to write a progression of the relationship. And I'm going to say this to every one of you that are in a relationship or married, whatever you got going on. We do all this desire before we meet, and then we come together and we're in it and we get in this little groove and it just kind of plays out. And our whole world, our whole life, we're here to creatively manifest, to grow, to change. And when we move into relationships, the relationships are often time capsules that get frozen. If you will continue shooting for what you're wanting to manifest, your relationship will always grow and enhance. And I continued writing these little scenes like I'm telling you about. He was in a business of his own with another guy at the time, and I was in between, what in the world am I going to do? And I would just write. And I'd write about us being in business together. I'd write about us getting married. I'd write about us leaving Louisiana. Every darn thing I wrote about came true. Even down, this is where it gets creepy, even down to the conversations. He would come back and say them to me. So I'm telling you, this works. But you can't, I tell people, do your journaling like you're taking heart medication. You can't skip a week, a month. It has to be consistent. And, you just pick a topic Now, here's another little psychic hint for you that I figured out. People will say, well, what if it's the wrong dream? What if there's just no way I can do it? Walt Disney said, if you can imagine it, you can live it. Now, that sounds real flowery and cute, but on a quantum physics level, if your mind can imagine something, that is your psychic tool that you're actually tuning in to one of these other realities. If you can't imagine it, yeah, it's a done deal. But if you can imagine it, you're tapping in. And that's the first thing I tell somebody when they say that to me. Well, I don't know if this is the right dream. Can you imagine it? Go home and see if you can imagine it and get back to me. And I say, give me the vision that you received. And that's what I did with Matt. I had to question, is this right? Is this a right path? And the vision just came all over me. I said, okay, that was my answer. So as you use that step to know if it's something within your ability, then you start focusing on it, you start journaling on it. And another way to go about it is, especially in relationships, is everybody in here in a relationship? Are we desiring one maybe? Okay. So when we're single, especially 7 years, that's a long darn time. When we've created a pattern, and Debbie was using exercise, I've never liked this.
Mm-hmm.
When we have a pattern established, that's a tricky one because you're used to it and you expect it. But I would go to the grocery store and I would imagine, okay, if I had a guy here, what would we be grocery shopping for? And it was hilarious that I actually thought about that because that was like a really big deal when we got together, is grocery shopping. But you go in your house, okay, if I wasn't single, would there be 2 toothbrushes here? Yes. What would my bedroom look like? How would I go about my day? You make a decision to go do something. Well, if there was 2 of us, how would I be making this decision? It's moving into that new reality, that new version of yourself, and making it more familiar than what you've already lived. Now, does anybody have any other examples they'd like to use? A topic they'd like to manifest? Anybody?
I just have a question about the journaling process. Is it more the creative process of visualization and just imagining things that's more important than the writing itself? Because I'm sometimes embarrassed of what people might read, so I've developed like cryptic methods of writing. So does the physical ink on the paper have any value in the manifestation process?
The act of writing does, but I understand what you're saying about privacy matters. Totally understand that. I don't think you're going to take away your creative ability by not writing it down. It's just really good when you do. Let me ask you this. Could you, instead of like writing words, could you draw little sketches that would go under the radar?
Yeah.
Do that. Do that. I'm a big proponent of the inner child, and when we give that facet of ourselves expression, they become our biggest cheerleader and guide. And you've heard the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. When you draw your dream out, it has a very powerful effect. And the whole time you're drawing, you're thinking about it, right? So I would do drawing and I would do the mental visualization.
Okay. And how about speaking things out loud?
The speaking, I know a lot of people, Louise Hay's a big advocate of affirmations, and I love Louise Hay. But for me, affirmations, I can take them or leave them. I do try to be cognizant of what I'm speaking, especially in a conversation with somebody. But as far as writing affirmations down, I did not experience that much impressive results from them. For me, it's always been more about getting into the, now I guess if you're doing affirmation and you really are getting into the feeling tone of it, that's helpful, yes?
Mhm.
That just triggered me, let me say this, for Debbie was asking about the meditation included in this. What meditation does in practical terms is it helps you drop resistance. Clears you out, okay? It's not a necessary component of manifesting, but if you've got a lot of resistance, it can be very helpful. Now, there's many purposes of meditation, but I'm speaking specifically about manifestation. Another thing, if going down to the creek and sitting on some rocks releases resistance, it is accomplishing the same thing the meditation would have accomplished as far as your manifesting. Anything else?
Are you familiar with sigil work or sigilization?
Barely.
Okay, could that be a substitute for journaling in case your desires are more private?
So basically, let me say this back to you, make sure I'm on the same page. So it's like using a symbol that embraces the dream.
Yeah, and you construct the symbol out of a statement of desire with the letters in that statement.
It can be powerful, and I'll tell you why. Before man knew how to write, he knew how to draw symbols, okay? Symbols are very powerful in that they speak to the mass consciousness. A lot of symbols, I don't know what that means, but your subconscious understands. So, yes, I think it could be very powerful, but I really want to encourage you back around to creating the story, the scene in your head. Because the reason why I say that is because, number one, you're going to attach, as you move through the scene, you're attaching emotional intensity to it. And because it keeps you there for so long, remember the 17 seconds, we're wanting to multiply that out as much as we can. But really, it's going, I don't know, and you would know because you practice this, I don't know if you're going to get the visceral fullness of the feeling by just focusing on that one concept. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, because remember, this stuff is propelled into manifestation via emotion. Emotion is necessary. It's the fuel. And let's take this another way. If he were to just write a story down, or even think a story, and it really didn't mean that much to it, it has no power. It's when you are caught up in what you're talking or thinking about that it has leverage. Anybody else? Questions?
I can contribute a little bit. When you brought up focus earlier, it's like my ability to manifest is really limited by my focus, and I have a 3-year-old and a 13-year-old, and so the focus has to change. So it's just sharing that focus, and I don't journal, but hearing about this is really interesting because I seem to find while I'm trying to manifest something, it can take a long time because I might have these great ideas and I'm kind of flushing them out in my head, but then focus goes to the children or the family or whatever.
You feel split, pulled in many directions.
And then I feel like I have to come back to it and re-put that energy And as I'm hearing you talk, I'm just thinking, wow, I could really tighten up that time frame maybe, because I feel like I would be locking it down more versus rethinking it again or forgetting it. God, what was I thinking? How was I planning that before? And so,
Let
I
me give
just-
you a little magical tool for that. Your children are purer focusers than you are. If you would start bringing them into the visualization, make it a game for the whole family, they will help you manifest very quickly. Yeah. I'll teach parents to do that, especially when they have little kids. I'll say, okay, whatever the dream is. I had a girl come to me about 2 months ago in absolute panic. She's got a 9-year-old son, and she left another state to come here. Her husband moved here, and they came here. But the child's father is deeply, deeply addicted and abusive, and he was fighting her to bring that kid back to the other state. And I talked to her about this, and I said, bring your son into this visualization. And his kid told her, he said, after they did it, he's like, wow, I feel so relaxed and so happy. And they ended up manifesting what they wanted to manifest. But children, you give them your dream, they're gonna run with it. They'll give you all kinds of things that you weren't even thinking about writing down or thinking out loud. They are powerful allies.
That's great.
Because children don't know any better yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
They don't know that they can't believe, right?
That's right. So get them while they're hot.
That's good. That was good. Thank you.
What about grouchy husbands? How do you get them?
I'm glad you've brought in relationships on that level, because one of the things people say, well, I'm married to such and such. He wants to move to the ocean, I want to move to the mountains. What do you do when you both want two different things or have two different perspectives?
Move to Malibu.
Move to Malibu? You get both?
Yes, you're living on the mountains and you got the beach.
There you go, there you go. So what we can do, now this is tricky for people to wrap their minds around. I'm going to try to wade through it with you guys and keep it as simple as possible. When you're dealing with someone else, remember what I said, no one else can create your reality, right? Remember what I said, that there's multiple versions of reality, okay? Now this is quantum level stuff that's it's just gonna warp your mind, I know.
Is this where you just swap out your spouse? Is that what we're talking
Get a new version in that reality? Well, what happens is really magical things happen. Number one, and I hate to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it. The person who's most focused in any arrangement, whether it be in a company, whether it be in a country, whether it be in a marriage, the person most focused, not running around willy-nilly in their mind, manifest. Okay? Now this even goes for court cases. If you've got a person that's just, I hate you, I want to do this to you, and you can get over here with the other person and say, okay, what do you want to manifest? Focus purely there. I don't care how much this guy's screaming at you, beating you over the head, whatever. Focus on what you want. And that's very difficult when you're having to deal with reality. But if you can stay in that laser beam focus, you will manifest. And I get a lot of people that are in a panic about something. And the first thing I got to do is calm them down so that they can focus. But when you're in a panic, your vibration is so scattered. It's like dandelion seeds floating around. And it's anyone's guess what's going to manifest from there. So getting back to a partner, well, I get this too. I've had people, oh, my husband's so negative, he's so negative, and I'm trying to be positive, what do I do? Well, you're not gonna like this answer.
Everybody take a breath.
Right? Like, have you been at my house?
Remember what I said about you are the director of your play? You have given this human being his attitude, his personality, his dialogue. If you don't like it, the only person that can do anything about it is you. And you say, well, I've known this person 100 years and he has this habit. There's no way I can change it. And this often comes up when people are thinking of breaking apart or divorcing. They come to me, should I do this? Well, I'm not going to tell anybody what they should do. But they get a little flustered because I tell them, you can take that one and you can start reimagining, visualizing a new version of him that's compatible and stay. Or you can stay on this track and leave this version of it behind. So everything you get, it doesn't matter who it is, you've created that. And when you've lived with somebody for many, like 20, 30 years, it's very hard to retrain your mind on what you expect of that person. But I will promise you 100%, a person is going to give you what you expect every single time. And you know, you've created a pattern there, so it's kind of hard not to expect it. There was something I was going to get in there. Oh,
Do you think, may I? Does that even go along with just close relationships versus like just being a husband and wife or something like that?
every single one of them.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how to see this chart because a recent friend of mine has had a death in the family and it has ended up at this end.
The grief.
Yeah, at this end where I'm at this end and then we've separated. And so,
I love where you're going with this.
yeah, and I'm kind of at the point know that I want to stay here. I want to stay in here and have a healthy relationship, but I've let that go because he's here. But because I'm still here and want to send love, I just didn't know if, even if it's still kind of a distant, not so tied relationship, if that can still be manifested, that there's a peace despite his reality and my reality.
Two things can happen. When someone is in our life, there's a mutual agreement, okay? When someone leaves, there's a mutual agreement. Even if they get up and leave you, abandon you, there was a soul mutual agreement, okay? People can only be in your life if they're a match. Birds of a feather flock together. That is the truest thing ever said. Now, you can do these things we've been talking about to build some kind of bridge.
Yeah.
If there is a matching version of him that resonates with your new story. And the way you know if there's a matching version is if you can imagine it. I wrote a book about this, about quantum physics, law of attraction, working within relationship dynamics. I'm waiting to publish it, but it will be out there. But I talk about all these different dynamics you can bring in energy-wise, because we all think we gotta go, if I want him to change, I gotta tell him da-da-da-da-da-da. I gotta cram it down their throat. So much can be accomplished telepathically, non-verbally. It is a much purer process of communication than our language. So, yes, if I were you, I would start with some soul talk to him, and the way I tell people to do it, hold your hand over your heart, especially when you're about to go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And see the person standing in front of you and look in their eyes, because that bypasses the ego, goes right to the soul. And speak from your heart, no judgment, no expectation. This is how I feel. I would love to have harmonious interaction with you.
Mm-hmm.
So you send that out, he receives it unconsciously.
Yeah.
And you'll notice when you do that with somebody, you'll pick up if they're resistant to that. Because they'll be like this, they'll walk away, they'll start arguing with you. In that visualization, you'll pick up where they're at. And then after that, after you can sense his permission, start doing your visualization. And if you can imagine it, like I said, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of like almost an expanded version of a meditation of just sending someone love and light. I mean, I totally had a similar situation going on with a good friend, and
Yeah,
just pulling
I've done it
apart
for
because I
years.
cannot
Yeah.
come here. You know?
Well,
I can't do it.
I
I'm not
am
with it.
thankful that you two cannot.
No, I don't.
Because when someone's in a low place, and this is the thing I get with these people that are healers and want to rescue everybody, I tell them, if you try to get down in that hole with them, guess what? You're in the hole.
Mhm.
You can send love,
Yeah.
you can send intention, but don't let that mess with your vibration.
Right.
And anytime someone is in a place of connection and knowing, you're much more a powerful influencer of someone's suffering than when you're commiserating, when you're even feeling pity, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're no use to them at that point. And sometimes they say, well, you're pretty cruel. You're not down here with me. But you just got to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I wanted to say, and I don't want to keep you guys over your time, when we're manifesting and we got life happening, and you can't just pretend it's not happening, and there's all this contrast coming up, and you're like, oh my God, this is not working because this is going wrong, and it keeps proving to me that it's not happening, it's not happening. You have to forget reality. You have to be so powerfully present in your manifestation that you let the rest fall away, and it will. But as long as you keep giving it attention, you keep that frequency alive. And that does make it tricky when you're trying to manifest.
Yeah, at the beginning you said your beliefs equal our reality, so despite the circumstances.
When your beliefs set up the way you perceive the world.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing this radio show and this guy was sitting there talking to me and he said, well, it doesn't matter if there's 45 women in a room, I'm going to gravitate to the one that's mean and abusive. And I said, your perception is going to be drawn to that vibration every time. So as he shifts his beliefs about what's available, what's possible, then he's going to start perceiving. The pot of gold's always been sitting there. Your perception just hasn't seen it yet. Does that make sense?
I love that visual.
Oh, thank you.
I do.